Meanwhile, on the comic box, everybody was kung fu fighting. Dip comics. Hey everyone, welcome to the Comic Box, part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. I am Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek, and if that seemed like a very short intro, missing a second voice, that is because I am not joined this week by the lost Liam O'Rourke. He had to work, and I wanted to get this episode out there for all of you guys that are about to dive into Iron Fist, so we're going old school. It is just me this week. I hope you guys can handle my silky baritone with no interruption until you pause the podcast or turn it off or the episode ends. Or there's the commercial with Void and Beach. You know, hey, it's just me doing the show again. This week, issue number 40 is your primer for Netflix's Marvel's Irons is Fists. Netflix's Marvel's Iron. I'm not sure how they title that, because it's not Netflix's Iron Fist. I imagine it's Marvel's Iron Fist, but it's on Netflix and it has the Netflix brand on it because it's a Netflix original. So is it Marvel's Netflix original Iron Fist? Who knows? In any case, that's what we are talking about. But first, as always, the weekly geekery, even though it's just me here. I am still reading through Invincible. I read the 12-issue Vision series, and I binged it. I figured I would give it a shot, and I got hooked right away. It is really sad, though. It is really depressing. I will not lie to you guys. I rolled one single, incredibly masculine tear towards the end. I'm not going to tell you when, because it would probably ruin the comic, but it is a really good read, and it was only 12 issues, which is what drew me to it, and the fact that Vision, the Vision's android or synthezoid daughter, is a member of the Champions, which is a comic that I'm enjoying. I also downloaded via Comixology. I always call it Comixology. It's Comixology. All 10 issues of the Overwatch comic book, which you can get for free. It is free on the site. I went to Comixology to get my reading this week. I hope we all did our homework and read Volume 1 of the Immortal Iron Fist. And I just, was poking around the free comics, and I saw that all the Overwatch comics were free. So if you're an Overwatch fan, go read them. Each one focuses on a different character and just gives you a little tiny scene. It's kind of neat. It's sort of like their cinematics. Just a nice little scene. But hey, free. And then as far as watching, I am now on Season 2 of Young Justice, my rewatch. I've seen the show before, but I'm rewatching. But let's backtrack. Speaking of free, I have a Geeky Offer of the Week for you guys, which I've never done on this show. And this one, I guess, doesn't technically count as a Geeky Offer of the Week because it's not really coming from me. Like, I'm forwarding it to you, but unlike the Geek to Geek podcast, where they actually have deals where you can go and sign up for Audible or whatever and put in Geek as your code. This is not one of those. This was something that got passed around on Twitter. It got to me from Chris Evans, Christopher Evans on Twitter. Thanks, Chris. Is that if you download the Marvel Unlimited app, if you have never tried this app, it is basically a giant backlog of Marvel comics, and they're constantly adding new ones every month. Usually it's about 6 months or so back from today's comics, but if you're not worried about being up to date, which if you're a fan of this show, you don't need to be, because we don't do weekly reviews anymore because they took far too much time, effort, and money, you can go to the Marvel Unlimited app and use the special offer code RAND, as in Danny Rand the Iron Fist, so R-A-N-D. You can get a completely free month of Marvel Unlimited. That is a month of paying $0 for a stupid amount of comic books. So go binge, tell me your favorite one, tell me something you just discovered, and we'll talk about it. We can talk about it on the show, we'll talk about it on the subreddit. I want to hear what you guys discover. So that is the Marvel Unlimited app, offer code RAND, R-A-N-D. Let's get into some news, shall we? News. And I don't know how this slipped past me, but this piece of news came out about a week ago, and just seeing the name on it made me instantly go, oh man, I need to make sure I put this on the show just for Professor Beej. I also send it to him on Twitter if you follow us on Twitter at ComicBoxCast. Apparently, R.L. Stine, the writer of the Goosebumps books that some of you probably really enjoyed as kids, I'll be honest, I got about 3 in, realized the whole thing had a formula and quit. I'm above it all, he said, pushing up his giant nerd glasses he's not actually wearing. R.L. Stine is writing a 5-issue Man-Thing series for Marvel. For those that don't know who Man-Thing is, he's basically Marvel's version of Swamp Thing, except he's less about, like, saving the green, as Swamp Thing calls it, you know, all of nature. He's this big, also a swamp monster dude, actually kind of looks sort of similar as well, and then he has this, like, touch that burns people. I don't know if it's evil or if it's just people who are really emotional. I don't really know a lot about Man-Thing, but I'm sure I'm going to, I guess, or rather Beej can. I'm going to make Beej go and get this comic book, and then he can come on the show and review it. How about that, Beej? You have homework. Over in Marvel TV land, that X-Men show on Fox that we've talked about a couple of times about the family that has a mutant kid and go into this mutant underground, now has a working title, Gifted, as in Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. So at least now we can call it something besides that other X-Men show, though I don't want to make it sound like I'm speaking poorly of Legion. That's over on FX, which would be that X-Men show, I guess. But I hear it's actually doing pretty well. I hear people like Legion. I haven't seen it yet. What do you think? Is it on Hulu? I don't know if it's on Hulu. If it is, maybe I'll go and watch the pilot or something, and we'll do an episode on it. But yeah, if you're watching Legion, I'd be curious. Is it worth my time? Let me know. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up on the subreddit. Marvel movie news. You guys ever wonder why Jane Foster isn't in Ragnarok and how she was just sort of not around for Age of Ultron? Like she gets mentioned in I think, what was it, the first Avengers, where they're like, she's safe. And he's like, thank you. Flex, 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 flex. Well, the reason that she isn't in Ragnarok, and as far as she's concerned, not in any of the Marvel movies going forward, is they broke up. They broke up prior to Ragnarok. That's all you get. That's your explanation. The director has said that there's several reasons why she's not, partly because the movie doesn't take place on Earth at all, and I guess they didn't want the tag-along. I'm okay with that lack of a love story kind of thing. I don't feel that I need that in every one of my superhero movies. I felt like it was a little shoehorned in the other Thor flicks. And the fact that they immediately fell in love with one another after being together for, I mean, that first movie takes place over like a long weekend. So, like, in that sense, I'm okay with it, but I did like the character of Jane Foster, and I would have loved to see some little hints. I would love for, you know, Infinity War to suddenly end with this massive crash of Jane Foster becoming Thor and Bucky Barnes becoming Captain America and maybe James Rhodes taking over as Iron Man and some of those things that switched over in the comic books. I would love to see that as well, but obviously no is their answer. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 officially will have a stinger at the end of their credits. Duh. But now you know. The movie comes out May 5th, and yes, it will have something at the end of the credits, so stick around, read as many of the names as you can, give a little respect to the folks that worked on the movie, and enjoy the soundtrack, which I'm sure is going to be sweet. Ooga chaga. Sony, those folks that do Resident Evil and Underworld and not much else, is doing a Venom movie, and now every website I saw called it a spin-off. So that would imply that it's a spin-off of the Sony Spider-Man movies, Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2 being the most recent one. But I don't know, because we have a new Spider-Man now in the MCU. We know that this Venom movie is not going to take place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because why would you do that? That would just make fans happy. But it would also, I guess, muddy the waters of the MCU even further and make it harder for fans to keep all of the characters straight. But I'm telling you, this is just going to confuse people. You can't do an MCU version of Spider-Man, then take arguably, there's Green Goblin and such, but arguably his greatest villain, as we've seen in every, superhero movie, the opposite version of himself kind of thing, Venom, in a completely separate movie that doesn't have anything to do with this new version of Spider-Man, whatever. But go try and make your money, Sony, I guess. Go have fun. Hey, who knows? Maybe it'll be phenomenal. I'm speculating on absolutely nothing. The movie is set to come out October of 2018, which was when Aquaman was going to come out, but moving over to DC, Aquaman movie has been pushed back to Christmas of 2018. I'm sure because they were terrified of a Venom movie coming out the same weekend? Probably not. Probably not. The poll list, this is simple. Watch Iron Fist. We're about to do a deep dive into the world of Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, and tell you guys probably more than you ever wanted to know about the character, probably more than you need to know for the show. So it comes out the day after I'm recording this. I'm recording this on St. Paddy's Eve, if you will. So happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you out there. And I hope you enjoy it, Slanja. Yeah, so just watch Iron Fist. I'm not giving anybody anything to read this week. You can go check out the Marvel Unlimited app, obviously. But beyond that, watch Iron Fist, because that's what we're going to be talking about next week. Hey, you know what I like? The Geek to Geek podcast. You know why? I don't know. Tell 'em, Void. Smooth.
I'm Void.
And I'm Beej.
And together, we're the Geek to Geek podcast. Well, we make it. It is kind of us, but I guess it's separate.
Every week, we pick a topic from geek or digital culture and chat about it for a while.
And you're invited. We talk about books and movies, games, comics, the internet.
Or really whatever we feel like.
Yeah, that too.
So look for the Geek to Geek podcast on iTunes.
Or wherever your podcasts are sold. Or downloaded. Or whatever.
Fantastic. That was such a smooth intro into our commercial break. I don't know. But if you're not listening to their podcast, I don't know what you're doing with your time when you're not listening to this podcast. Like, that should be, And hey, there are other shows on the Geek to Geek podcast network too. Did you know this? I'll bet you did. There's the Geek Fitness Health Hacks podcast that's hosted by Beej. Are you listening to that? You should. It will inspire you to run and lift things and, in general, be a more healthy person and more mindful about yourself. What would that be? Healthful? But he gives a lot of, self-care tips and stuff like that, too. It ain't just about lifting heavy things, geeks. It's about the total health thing. So go check out some of the other shows. I like them. You should, too. Let's move into the topic of the week, shall we? I don't know what I should do for Iron Fist. I suppose it would be like, wha, cha, ma, ba, di, da, ba, hoo, wha, da, ba, da, bo, chop, block. It's all in the mind. Punch and kick. Parappa the Rapper. Side note, I want an Iron Fist Parappa the Rapper spin-off series. It can be its own thing. That's totally fine. Welcome to the topic of the week, everybody, where we are talking about Iron Fist. I'm going to be honest with you. I have a lot of notes, and they are not at all in order. Again, this whole thing was kind of rushed to get this out for you guys. We had to move a couple of things around the past couple of weeks. So I'm just going to start it off by telling you that Iron Fist first appeared in Marvel Premiere number 15 in May of 1974, created by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane, two of the giants of the comic book industry. Also, sort of neat, after the Marvel Premiere thing, he was in Marvel Premiere for a little while, he got his own first 15-issue series that was written by, I think amongst other people, Chris Claremont and penciled by John Byrne. If you don't know those names, look them up. They did some of your favorite stuff ever. John Byrne had some legendary runs at both DC and Marvel, same as Chris Claremont. You like X-Men, you kind of have Chris Claremont to thank for a lot of the X-Men stuff that you enjoy. And very cool that they actually worked on this book. Anyway, 15 issues, the book gets canceled. So what do? Well, they take Iron Fist and they merge him. He goes and he guest stars in Power Man for a couple of issues. And then with issue 50, Power Man becomes Power Man and Iron Fist. And that ran until issue 125 when they unceremoniously killed off Iron Fist. A move that still upsets people. To this day, apparently. The diehard Iron Fist fans, not cool that he was basically unceremoniously killed at the end of the series just as a last gut punch surprise for fans. And then he was brought back, what would this be, 4, 5, 6 years later in 1992. And they did this whole weird story where they said his body was really a plant-based clone thing. He basically got the Jean Grey treatment, where they die and they're like, oh, that wasn't them, that was a clone. After the Power Man and Iron Fist series ends, he's brought back in 1992. There's sort of a gaggle, as I wrote in my notes, so it must be the proper term, a gaggle of miniseries and guest appearances and various comics. And then we get to The Immortal Iron Fist in 2007, which was co-written by Ed Brubaker, the guy who created The Winter Soldier, and Matt Fraction, who was the writer on, all sorts of stuff, but in particular here, this book drawn by David Aja. Matt Fraction and David Aja had the much-celebrated Hawkeye run that made Hawkeye not suck. I know if the wife is listening to this, Hawkeye sucks, and to her it is an irrefutable fact. But I had no idea that it was Brubaker and Fraction on this book. Those are some pretty heavy hitters for writers. So this book, The Immortal Iron Fist, sort of expanded on his history. We learned the fact that there were Iron Fists over time, very much kind of like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Iron Fist was a part of the New Avengers in the 2010 run. In 2014, he got another solo series called Iron Fist the Living Weapon as part of the all-new Marvel Now thing. And I don't know if that's still going or not. You'd think I would have checked in on that. There was also a couple Heroes for Hire stories in there as well. That sort of, people recognize Iron Fist as either Power Man and Iron Fist, or the book that they were also in called Heroes for Hire, where the two of them hired themselves out as bodyguards and private investigators. Anyway, let us speak of The Immortal Iron Fist, the book that we read for this week. This recapped and I'm assuming updated the history of Iron Fist. Some of what I have written down in my notes is supplemented by the Marvel Wiki or Wikipedia, or there's several sources that I went to. We'll put it that way. But almost everything, when I give you guys things on the show, I'm Wikipediaing it. But here's what we learned. Iron Fist is a master martial artist who has the ability to focus and channel his chi and can do ultimate super strong punches, can heal fast, and that's pretty much it. So if you've been watching any of the Netflix shows, you saw Daredevil talking about harnessing his chi to heal himself faster. Iron Fist can do the same thing, maybe even a little bit better. And then he has the power of the Iron Fist, which he got from his origins of killing a magical dragon, plunging his hands into its heart, which was not in the dragon, but kept in this brazier fire thing outside of the dragon's body, and it gave him the ability to call upon this mystical energy, which he channels through his fist to punch things real good. And that's Iron Fist. He was created very much like Power Man was created to, I don't want to say exploit, because I'm about to say blaxploitation, but to sort of cash in on the blaxploitation films of the 60s and 70s. Iron Fist was that for the martial arts films. So we got a white character that went to, and I'm doing finger quotes here so that it's not offensive, the Orient, and came back with super kung fu abilities. We talked about that a little bit last week. But what we learned in the Iron Fist series, and which I hope we get in this Netflix show, is that Danny Rand was not supposed to be Iron Fist. His father was. And I really like that. It's a nice twist. We find out that his father was the real guy that did the white dude in the Orient thing and was raised in the city, the mystical city, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I'm sure, Kunlun, which is in the Himalayan mountains and is only accessible by Earth once every 10 years. Except whenever the story requires it to happen, which happens a lot. Like, no kidding. My understanding is he literally finds a portal under an elevator in his dad's building. So, they say every 10 years, but loopholes. Point being, his father was raised in Kunlun and was meant to be the leader of their whole society, which is known as the UT or Utai. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. And he sort of gets betrayed. He falls in love. He actually has another child, a daughter. So somewhere out there, Iron Fist has a stepsister, I guess. But he had a sort of adoptive brother named Nu-An, N-U-A-N. And Nu-An was very jealous of Rand. And eventually, when Randall grew up, he did not become the Iron Fist. He left and returned to New York from whence he came, where he started the Rand Corporation, which then went through a bunch of different iterations, which we'll get to. So this villain, which I don't think is going to be in this show, Nu-An, became the august personage of Jade, which is the leader of this society at Kunlun, head of the Dragon Kings, the ruling order of the city, and gains the title of UT, or Utai. I'm going to go with UT. When Danny Rand is then 9 years old, his father, it's not Randall, it's Wendell Rand. I'm sorry, whatever. So Wendell, is that really better? Isn't Randall Rand a little more fun? In either case, his dad decides that he's going to take them, the 10 years have passed, and he is going to go and find this sacred heavenly city. And along with the family is Wendell's business partner, Harold Meacham. Remember this name, he is in the Netflix show. So what happens is Wendell is about to fall off of a cliff. He slips, and Harold catches him, but then decides to let Wendell fall because then Harold knows that he's going to get to take over the Rand business, which then gets turned into Rand Meacham or something like that for a while in the comic books. And then Danny's mother is also killed by wolves because mountains, and mountains have wolves in them. Now, the current UT, New On, the evil brother of Danny's father, saw this happening but decided not to help in order to take Danny under his wing and turn him into sort of what he thought was his version of what the Iron Fist should be, and he raises Danny Rand to be the Iron Fist. So in order to do this, Danny trains for, 9 years, 10 years before he's able to leave again, and he has to go into this cave and fight a literal dragon named Shu Lao the Undying. This is the source of all of Kunlun's power and the source of the Iron Fist ability. So he trains in all of his martial arts, which somehow allows him to kill a dragon. At some point while fighting the dragon, he gets a symbol burned into his chest, which is the symbol of the Iron Fist, that dragon symbol that he has on his chest. That's also sort of his logo there. So he defeats the dragon, and behind the dragon, what it is guarding is its own heart, which has been melted down and is continually burning in a brazier. This is its own story about the dragon dying and the UT of millennia ago saving the dragon by melting down its heart and keeping it burning, and then the dragon powered Kunlun. This is, I assume, not important information for the show we're about to watch. The point is he shoves his hands into the fire, and it gives him the ability to use some of the dragon's power and channel it through his fist. So his fist glows and he can punch through things. What's interesting that we find out in the Immortal Iron Fist is this has happened like 66 times or something like that. Like, there are a lot of Iron Fists, and we actually get to meet one. The story that we read for this week begins with the current Iron Fist meeting the Iron Fist of the 1930s, who may have been, maybe that guy's name was Randall. That makes more sense. I think his last name was Randall. So who may have been an ancestor to Danny Rand. And he has something cool where he can use the Iron Fist ability and channels the chi through his handguns to make them more bullety or whatever. And he's also able to use the Iron Fist ability to hypnotize people as well. And we hear stories of former Iron Fists that could make like fiery arrows every time they shot an arrow and that sort of thing. Again, I don't know that we're going to get a lot of this history, but when he talks about being the Iron Fist, it gives you, in the trailers, it gives you a sense that clearly there is some sort of history there. There's some sort of lineage. So it's possible we'll get to hear about former Iron Fists, especially with the villain. But as always, I'm getting ahead of myself yet again. So after, studying in the city for 10 years, Danny Rand returns to New York to find out that Harold Meacham is now running his father's company along with his friends, the Meacham kids, Joy and, Bro Dude, whatever the other guy's name is. In the comics, eventually what happens is Danny gets his revenge, finds out what Meacham did, and he ends up letting Meacham's daughter, spoilers, potential spoilers from here on out, I guess, is he lets Meacham's daughter, Joy, run the company. However, and let's just start getting into some of the other characters. Like, literally, the story is Danny Rand goes, he trains in this place for 10 years, he becomes the Iron Fist, he comes back to New York, and then he sort of decides whether he's going to do the business thing or the superhero thing. In the comics, clearly, as he's a superhero, he decides to let somebody else run the company, and he works with Power Man as the Heroes for Hire. That's the comic version of the story. When we get to Immortal Iron Fist, though, there's somebody else running the company. It's not Joy Meacham. It's a man named Jaron Hogarth. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because in Jessica Jones, we met a lawyer, a female lawyer named Jerry Hogarth, played by Carrie-Anne Moss. And she is slated to appear in Iron Fist. So my thought is perhaps she will end up taking over. In the comics, she started out as the lawyer and business representative of the Heroes for Hire company, and then through whatever, writing or just editorial decisions, he was the one that was sort of running, at that point known as Rand Corp, for Danny Rand, so he could go out and do his Iron Fist thing. It's very sort of Bruce Wayne-ish, like if you think back to the Dark Knight movies where you had Bruce Wayne basically letting Morgan Freeman run his company. I can't do it as well as Liam can. But Lucius Fox. He basically lets Lucius Fox run his company, but he's still technically in charge and shows up to board meetings and stuff. That's kind of where Danny Rand is in the comic books. So that's it. That's his general story. So let's start talking some of these other characters that we're going to run into. First, and probably foremost, is Colleen Wing, who we see in the trailer. She gets her own little thing about how she's a cage fighter. Clearly, it looks like there's going to be some sort of romantic connection between her and Iron Fist. Thanks, but no thanks. Here's the deal. They were never together in the comic book. It's actually Colleen's future partner, Misty Knight, who we were introduced to in Luke Cage, who becomes Iron Fist's girlfriend, I'm guessing on and off, and huge spoilers here in the comic book. At the end of one of the arcs there, before they kind of did a soft reboot, pregnant with Iron Fist's child and engaged to Danny Rand. Just the same as Jessica Jones is the mother of Luke Cage's kid. Spoilers. So many spoilers, you guys. So here's the deal. When Danny Rand comes back, before he's able to sort of get his company back, he befriends a professor of, and we'll use finger quotes, of Orient Studies or something like that, who is Colleen Wing's father. And then Colleen Wing gets in trouble, and Danny Rand goes to rescue her. Now, I said Colleen Wing's future partner was Misty Knight. The connection there, very briefly, is another time that Colleen is in trouble. She is saved by Misty Knight, who at that time was still a police officer. And eventually, she quits being a police officer, so she and Colleen can go into business together as private investigators, because everybody is a private investigator. And their company is called Nightwing, spelled not the way you're thinking, not the DC hero, but Nightwing, KNIGHTWING, Restorations Limited, known colloquially in comics as the Daughters of the Dragon. And by this point, this is Misty Knight having a metal arm, and so she's got sort of super strength on that thing. And Colleen Wing does not have any particular superpowers. Her whole story is that she was raised by her grandfather in Japan, who studied as a samurai, so Colleen simply follows the ways of the samurai and uses a samurai sword. And I guess can channel chi like everybody else to, she doesn't get cold or she gets stronger, can heal herself faster, but in general has no superpowers, neither Colleen Wing nor Misty Knight. But the four of them, the Daughters of the Dragon and the Heroes for Hire, are sort of always have each other's backs. And we even see that in this volume of Immortal Iron Fist we read. This comic also introduced to me, because I don't know any of these things, a character named Davos. Not Serve Davos, the Onion Knight, but the Steel Serpent, who is basically a purple version of Iron Fist. He wears a purple headband thing. He is the guy who thought that he should have been Iron Fist, also comes from Kunlun. So he's basically the evil version of Iron Fist. He also has a symbol on his chest, but it's only the snake, not the wings, because apparently he didn't get burned hard enough when he went to try and fight the dragon and was unable to defeat Shu Lao the Undying. In the comic we read for this week, he teams up with the Mother of Cranes, who has a bunch of women who can turn into cranes and do not much else. And what the Steel Serpent does is, since he doesn't have the Iron Fist power, he sucks the life force from others. So he sucks the life force from these crane women to give himself sort of his version of the Iron Fist power. And in this run, he does the sort of punch the ground and everything explodes thing, but it's him that does it, not Iron Fist. But maybe that was an inspiration for that move. Now, I don't know that he is going to be in this. It sounds like our villain is actually going to be a character named Zhao Cheng. Now, he is also a character from Immortal Iron Fist. He just doesn't show up until later in the run, so I had to look this guy up. We didn't get to read about him for this week. His thing is he has been killing Iron Fists for 75 years. So if there's an Iron Fist, he goes after and kills them. Sort of like, again, Buffy. Like the Iron Fist thing is like the Buffy in every generation. There is a Slayer, one woman who stands, I guess that's girl because they usually die before they turn 18, right? Yeah, one person to fight the evil sort of thing. That's sort of the Iron Fist, except there's no big evil he's meant to fight. In fact, there are several other people like the Iron Fist because there are several other of these heavenly cities, and each of them has their own champion, and they all have like a Mortal Kombat tournament every so many years. And they're known as the Immortal Weapons, which comes later in Iron Fist stuff. Point being, Zhu Cheng, right? His thing is killing Iron Fists in the comic books. In the comics, he also secretly takes over the Rand Corporation. So he basically, think of him as Bane to Batman. He takes him down from the inside and the outside and tries to go in and kill Iron Fist. And he almost succeeds, except Danny Rand had the assistance of all of the other immortal weapons and was able to defeat Zhao Cheng. Now, why does Zhao Cheng do this? Because his master is Chai Lin, who is an evil demon from another dimension. We're not going to worry about that. I don't see us getting too much into the mystical in this. He has the ability, he gets it from a dragon, but I honestly don't know how much we're actually going to see him talking about actual dragons. You know what I mean? I feel like it's more going to be him having the ability to channel his chi and do the fist thing. Other characters that we might have pop up in here, you know how I mentioned Colleen Wing being kidnapped and Iron Fist having to go rescue her? Well, she was kidnapped by a dude named Master Khan, also born in Kunlun, this old wizard dude who brainwashed Colleen to fight Danny Rand. Now, if they do any sort of brainwashing, you would think that they're going to pull up in a connected universe something about the Purple Man, I would guess, and his ability to control minds. Because in the comics, Master Khan used a dude named Angar the Screamer, and look this guy up. He has the most ridiculous 70s handlebar mustache, biker dude with the fringe vest and everything, who has the ability to trip people out with his voice. He talks to you and you trip balls. The reason I'm telling you this, the reason I'm telling you about Master Khan is because he is the one who in the comic books reveals the truth about Nuwan, the evil, we'll call him adopted uncle, I guess, of Iron Fist. He's the one who reveals the truth about Nuwan letting Iron Fist's mom die. And then he creates a portal back, because again, only every 10 years, except when you need it, creates a portal back to Kunlun so Iron Fist is able to do it. He destroys the portal, causes a rip in reality that sucks Khan in, and then Khan becomes a leader of his own dimension and fights Captain Kirk. I might be getting my Khans mixed up there. Here's the way I'm seeing things go down. Danny Rand leaves. I would love to get the whole history of previous Iron Fist, and I would love the idea that he was never supposed to be Iron Fist. It's very Harry Potter. I just keep pulling from other fandoms here. But where they talk about how Neville Longbottom could have been the chosen one, except it just so happened to be Harry Potter's parents that Voldemort picks. Spoilers, I guess, if you haven't read Harry Potter. The idea that Danny Rand was never supposed to be the Iron Fist. His father was the one who trained there, like from birth, who always planned on being the Iron Fist and taking over the city until, his adopted brother betrayed him and he left. And then eventually it was his son who ends up taking on that role. I kind of dig that. I like the idea of I'm not even supposed to be here today, to quote Clerks and include yet another fandom in here because I'm just going to confuse you as much as possible. So I see Danny Rand coming back. We very much get the Bruce Wayne, hi, I'm back, I want my company thing, and the guy being like, didn't you get the memo? No. And then he'll somehow go and meet Colleen Wing, who in the show we know is like down on her luck and joins a cage fight to scratch up money. And maybe they'll join forces. He'll find out that Meacham, betrayed his father. And so if we're getting Meacham, I'll say that. If we're getting Meacham, I don't know that we're going to get the whole Nuwan thing. I think instead we're just going to have Meacham being sort of the head bad guy, and I think Meacham is just going to hire Zhu Chang, somehow knowing that he also has some ability. I wouldn't even be surprised if Zhu Chang gets combined with the Silver Serpent guy, the other Iron Fist dude. And they sort of combine those characters into one because it's a superhero story, so you have to fight the guy who's the opposite of you, which is really boring. I see them fighting him together, somehow overcoming, and then maybe that is when Carrie-Anne Moss's character comes in to help and maybe takes over the company or is there in the background. I don't know that we're going to get to see. I would love like a post-credits in the last episode scene where he meets Luke Cage. But I don't figure we're going to see Luke Cage or Jessica Jones or Daredevil in this because they've sort of been keeping everybody separate with the exception of Night Nurse, Rosario Dawson's character, Claire Temple, who is obviously just going to show up and probably say something about, we need to get a team together. You know, she's going to be the one that combines all of them. But that's really all I'm seeing. I don't think we're going to get a lot of portals back to Kunlun. I don't think we're going to hear about Chai Lin. I think they're going to keep it much more grounded, and I'm okay with that. I don't want to see the love story. I know it's going to be there, but I'm not really interested. I am a little worried that this story, as I'm reading it, just like we did with Power Man, where when Void and I went over the history of Power Man, it felt like there might not be enough story there to do as many episodes as they wanted to do. And I'm also seeing that here personally. And so I'm worried it's going to run into the same issue that Luke Cage did, where it sort of hit a snag and there was a couple episodes where not a whole lot happened. They could have stripped out several episodes and made it a much more streamlined, good show. But this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing he gets his company back at the end, but decides maybe he's going to go and I don't know what. I would think meet Luke Cage and talk about it, but more than likely it's going to be we'll see something having to do with Madame Gao and the Hand, perhaps again, because they were built up as villains in Daredevil. Maybe it'll be that he needs to get together with the other Defenders in order to fight Madame Gao and the Hand, and that's what Claire Temple does. That's kind of what I'm seeing. I don't think we're going to get as into all of the other history and stuff, which is too bad because like a Buffy thing, it's fun to explore some of the history, which I guess is what Immortal Iron Fist did. So I might actually keep reading because as much as I honestly don't care about the character of Iron Fist, and I still don't, I like the idea of the legacy hero. I like the idea that there's been Iron Fist for thousands of years. I think that part is cool. And that's it. Let's move into the end of the show, shall we? Wah, wah, chop, yeah, chow, ultimate punch, Falcon Punch. That's not this. So that's it for this week, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed my ridiculous, smattering, not at all organized information on Iron Fist. I'm sorry that it was so rushed, but I really wanted to get this out to you guys early so that you could know a little bit before going into the show. Hey, do you like this show? I mean, probably not this one because it was all disorganized, but do you like our show in general? Do you like listening to me and Liam talk about comics? I sure hope so. Why don't you spread the word a little bit? We have absolutely no money for advertising. We don't market this show. I share it on Twitter when I post a new episode, and that's it. So we really count on you guys, our listeners, and we hope our fans to spread the word. So if you follow us on Twitter at ComicBoxCast, why don't you give us a retweet when we post a new episode? Or just share it with your friends. And the best way, seriously, those star ratings and reviews on iTunes are absolutely fantastic. I think we have 10 right now, which means absolutely the world to me. And I tell you what, if we can get up to 20 star ratings by the end of, let's say, April, I will post a poll on Twitter. I'm pulling this off the top of my head. So I will post a poll on Twitter and the subreddit, and we will make Liam, and I'll join him. So Liam and I will watch the worst comic book movie that you guys can come up with. And we're talking the 1990s Captain America with the rubber ears. We're talking the David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury made-for-TV movie. TV stuff counts, you guys. So the worst TV thing that you guys have, we will watch it, and we will do a commentary track for it, which means we will watch the movie, and then we will go back and watch the movie again with the sound turned off so we don't violate copyright law and record a commentary track for you guys to listen to while we watch a horrible movie. I will do that for you guys if we can get another 10 star ratings by the end of April. They help out more than you guys know, and it is a wonderful, warm, fuzzy feeling every time I see a new one pop up. So head over to iTunes and do that for us, please. Do you want to talk more about Iron Fist? Do you want to talk episode by episode? I'm probably not going to. I'm just going to wait until next week to tell you my thoughts. But if you want to, you can head over to our subreddit, which is reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast. That is 2 spelled out T-O. So geektogeekcast. And tell us your weekly geekery, and we can talk Iron Fist. You can tell me how confusing it was trying to separate all the random facts that I gave you at this one. And I'm going to do an extra plug. This is super cool. You guys know how I talk about the Geektitude podcast from time to time, hosted by a Joe Hogan over there. Super nice guy. Well, he has invited me back on his show to do an Iron Fist review. I don't know when that episode is going to come out, but I think I'm going to record it next week around the same time that Liam and I will record our review for this show. So if I can get a hold of it, maybe he'll let me post a bonus episode and you can hear me review Iron Fist twice. Otherwise, maybe I'll try and come up with different talking points and it'll be like a part 2 of the review. Wouldn't that be cool, kids? Of course it would. So make sure you go, and if you're not listening to his podcast, please do. It's a wonderful interview show. He just had an episode on where he had indie comic publishers, and it's really interesting to hear how they do that thing that they do. And lastly, if you want to send diatribes but no manifestos, you can email us here at thecomicboxpodcast@gmail.com. That's it, you guys. I hope you enjoy Iron Fist. I hope I enjoy Iron Fist. And we will see you next week with the ba-da-bop-doo-bop-bow, ba-da-bop-doo-doo, the comic box. Wah! Choo! Yeah! Talking about Iron Fist. Q! Yeah! Chop! Block! Deppa-rappa-da-rappa! Dee-ba-da-bop-doo-doo! Fun fact, while I was editing, I went back and I watched the trailer again. They totally have Davos' symbol, the snake without the wings, in the trailer. So I'm still thinking that they're going to combine the two villain characters. They're going to combine him with the dude that kills Iron Fist. But hey, I got something right.